Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, from an undisclosed secret off-site location. What's going on, Bill?
I've been taken prisoner by SGA fans who want me to renounce my vote, right? So I'm in a black site. No, do you like the dig that got me in New York City? Pretty fancy.
Very fancy. I'm a little bit concerned. I think you need to hold up a newspaper. I don't know if people even have newspapers anymore, but something to show proof of life. If you get in any danger and you're a little bit worried, blink twice and we'll make sure to get you out of there.
Okay.
All right. We got a lot of things to talk about on today's show. Later in the show, we'll do previews and predictions for the Eastern Conference first round playoff series. Plus, we're going to preview tonight's win or go home 8-seed play-in matchups. Bill, I cannot believe the play-in is still happening. I feel like we've been talking about them for like 2 weeks, but they're still happening. We'll get into that a little bit later. First, we're going to do the Western Conference first round previews and picks. We're going to start with the number 1 seed, Oklahoma City Thunder. Maybe you can make some amends to those aforementioned Thunder fans for not picking SGA to win MVP, but we don't know who they're going to play yet. We don't have to belabor this one too much. It's going to be either the Mavericks or the Grizzlies, depending on who gets out of that 8-seed play-in tonight. I suspect that both of us are going to be on Oklahoma City here.
I'm on the Thunder. I will say this. I think the Grizzlies, if they advance, and if Ja is healthy, so a lot of ifs, I think they have a non-zero chance of winning. Is 1 out of 500 a non-zero chance, or 1 out of 100? I mean, I give the Mavs zero opportunity. You and I have discussed it. I actually think there's a ceiling for Memphis that's pretty high. Their floor is low enough that they obviously fired their head coach with just a few weeks to go in the regular season. But yes, it doesn't matter who they're playing. I think it may matter in terms of length of series and maybe degree of difficulty, but the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to advance. And this is, I think, the easiest pick, at least in the Western Conference, that we're going to do.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. You just saw a graphic up there on the screen with the best point differentials in NBA history. The Oklahoma City Thunder have that, Bill. They finished the regular season with the best point differential in NBA history, and all the other teams on that list went on to win an NBA title. Now, one of the things that you and I have talked about, and a lot of people have talked about, is that playoff experience, right? Because they were a super young team last year. They're still a super young team this year. I think they've taken great strides moving forward. If SGA, I know that you didn't have SGA number 1 on your MVP ballot. We talked about that earlier this week on CBS Sports Network about should it be SGA or should it be Joker. Putting that aside, he's had a remarkable season, and that team has had a remarkable season. And I just think whoever comes out of that Mavs Grizzlies matchup they're just going to be too much for them. In addition to best point differential, they had the best net rating in NBA history, 3rd best offense, and then that defense is so incredible. It's not just the number 1 defense in the NBA, Bill. It's the number 1 defense by a significant margin. So yeah, I'm with you that the Grizz have a better chance, but I don't know that they have much of a chance at all, given that there's so many different ways that Oklahoma City can beat you.
I mean, to back up what you just said, this has sort of been lost in the details because it hasn't mattered. But when the Thunder have had injuries, right? Chet Holmgren missed significant time when Hartenstein was out. It hasn't mattered. And those are not uncritical players. Those are not role players who don't make a difference. They're just so good and so deep that when they're missing important players, they just keep on keeping on. And you're right. Defensively, they're amazing. They're great offensively. They play as a team. Here, the comp for me is maybe to a degree almost the Boston Celtics last year, because there were questions, and I was one of them, didn't know the answer, but can Boston last year break through? Can they finally be the team that lives up to these expectations? They were incredible in terms of historical data if you looked at the degree of excellence in the regular season from the Celtics last year, but nobody sort of knew whether they were going to be able to get it done. And Tatum isn't a closer, and they don't have one guy, and can they shop that around between Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday and other people? And the answer was unequivocally yes. They won going away in the NBA Finals. Maybe the difference, John, is the Celtics, at least the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum led Celtics, those two guys and whatever incarnation the rest of the team has been put together with, have been in conference finals, had been in finals, had more experience. But like that team last year, I think you asked the same questions about the Thunder. Does the regular season excellence translate to the playoffs? The answer is probably yes, and I think in the opening round, it's certainly yes.
You know, I've been on them for 2 years, along with 12 other teams. You like to make fun of me for picking 12 teams out of 30 teams.
You do
30
though.
teams, but I have been on them for 2 years. This is the year that they reward my faith, Bill. I've got Oklahoma City winning this first round matchup against the Mavs or the Grizz. Doesn't matter. In 4, I think it's going to be a sweep. Which way are you going? Yeah, sweep time.
I mean, look, I think it depends what they're playing. If it's Dallas, it's 4. If it's Memphis, I do think Memphis could push it to 6. I think they won't, but I will put a floor to gentleman's sweep of Oklahoma City in 5.
I think that's fair. The Grizz could steal one, but I'm still going to go with the sweep. All right, let's move on to the 2-seed Rockets against the 7-seed Golden State Warriors. This is the one of all the matchups, Bill, Eastern Conference or Western Conference. This is the one that I am most excited about. And the one that's a little bit upside down. We were asked about it on HQ last night about Sam Quinn and I were on with Hakeem, and he was saying, is this a potential upset? It is, but only by the seeding, because in terms of the odds, the Warriors are actually the favorite going into this series, Bill. And it makes for a really interesting dynamic that you've got the Rockets, who some people aren't entirely sold on. They do have their problems. We'll get into in a little bit, but it's just such an intriguing matchup for so many different reasons. I can't wait for this one.
By the way, that includes me. I mean, I am certainly I'm a believer in the Rockets over the next 3 years. I'm a huge believer in the Rockets in 2026 or 2027. I think what they've done is commendable and amazing. I think they're ahead of schedule. If we're talking about playoff success in 2025, I'm not a believer. And John, we just talked about the Thunder and do they have the experience and all. This is actually the series that takes excellence without experience against a team that has a remarkable amount of experience, but barely got here for a variety of reasons. I mean, put aside the Thunder, because it's not as if the Memphis Grizzlies or this Mavs team have won a lot. This is a Warriors team that obviously Stephen Curry and Draymond Green have won a bunch of championships. Jimmy Butler has not won one, but he made 3 conference finals with the Heat over a 5-year span and made a couple finals. And so of all the things that are fascinating, the matchups, Amen Thompson, what he did to Curry at the end of the regular season, I know some of the things we're going to hit. There's also just a reality that the Warriors have been there, done that, and the Rockets haven't, despite the fact the Rockets were much, much better, much more consistent in the regular season.
Yeah, the Warriors have obviously much more playoff experience, but I would have expected, to be honest with you, them to be a heavier favorite. There's some series here, and we're going to get to them, especially in the Eastern Conference, where the odds on who's going to win the first round series are ridiculous. I had to look at them multiple times to make sure that they were real. This one isn't that heavily weighted in favor in terms of the betting favorites towards the Warriors. They're minus 166. Rockets are plus 138. I think that's a real testament to the Rockets in the season that they've had. They're fifth best in defensive rating. Bill, almost top 12 or almost top 10. They're 12th in offensive rating, despite the fact that they can't shoot.
Is it a testament though? I mean, they're the 2 seed. And they obviously, as the 2 seed, have home court advantage, and they're a dog. I don't think it is a testament. Yeah. I think it's a testament to the fact that Vegas has no faith in them.
Well, I'm just saying, like, some of the odds in the other series are much heavier than this one. And yes, they are the 2 seed, but the inexperience, I think, plays into it. The fact that, as I mentioned, that, they get their offense through untraditional means. They're not a good shooting team. They don't shoot a lot of threes. How they get their offense. And this is something that I wanted to discuss with you, is they're the best rebounding team in the NBA. I mean, they have so many second chance points because they just get after you on the glass. And I'm really interested to see, towards the end of the season, all of a sudden, Ime was running more double big with Alperen Şengün and Steven Adams. And I wonder how Steve Kerr might counter that, because the Warriors, at least on the front line, aren't super big. However, the interesting component here is, despite that, they are also a very good rebounding team. I mentioned Rockets #1 rebounding team in the NBA. The Warriors are 7th. So this is going to be one of those matchups where, like, I'm going to be super interested, not just in that front court, but also then again, you also alluded to it, Amen Thompson on Steph. That is going to be gangbusters. I can't wait to see that.
So there's a lot of things here that are interesting, and you just hit on one of them. I think counterintuitively, and you may disagree, and certainly there will be people who will, I think so. Coaching is much more significant, as you know, in the playoffs. You have practice time. You get to look at the tape. You're playing the same team, obviously, over and over again. It's not as if you're in Milwaukee one night and you have to get on a plane, and 2 days later you're playing Chicago and you don't have really time to prepare. So coaching has a lot more of an impact in the playoffs than the regular season. I think the advantage goes to the Rockets. And I know that's crazy, since Ime Udoka got fired a couple years ago and run out of Boston, but that wasn't about basketball reasons. And I know Steve Kerr's got 4 rings and is a Hall of Fame, going to be a Hall of Fame coach and all of that. I think that the advantage in some of the schematic things that are interesting and the tactical decisions that are going to happen, I think it's advantage. It's a really interesting series because that's their. I
Yes.
think coaching is their advantage here. Yeah.
So those matchups that we're talking about, so Ahmed on Steph, you're probably throwing Dylan Brooks on Jimmy Butler. Since getting Jimmy Butler, the metrics for the Warriors have been fantastic. First in defensive rating, ninth in offensive rating, first in turnovers forced, first in points off turnovers. But in terms of some of those rotations, it's interesting because once Jimmy came in, Jonathan Kuminga basically fell out of favor. And Steve Kerr in the last 2 games, including in the play-in, DNP-CD Jonathan Kuminga. And he said essentially that the spacing with Jimmy and Draymond is kind of wonky with Jonathan Kuminga because he's more of a mid-range game, and that they like Moses Moody more. So I'm fascinated to see if Kuminga is just out of the playoff rotation entirely now moving forward. Some of these chess moves between these two guys, between Ime and Steve Kerr, are going to go a long way to determining who comes out of this.
I mean, our producer Aaron would say that Ime is playing chess and Steve Kerr is playing checkers, but one of his checker pieces is Steph Curry. So just for the anti-Steve Kerr Warriors fans that are out there, it is going to be absolutely fascinating. There's going to be, I think, individual excellence is going to be a really determining factor. Can Amen Thompson shut down Stephen Curry? Is Jimmy Butler, if that happens, able to be playoff Jimmy for 4 or 5 or 6 games? I mean, this is going to it is probably the most interesting or the second most interesting series for me too of the opening round on both sides.
I can't wait for this one. Prediction time, Bill. You know how much I love the Rockets. I can't do it though. I'm going to go Warriors in 6.
Okay, this is one of your teams, but they're not your team.
I know. I know.
You're turning on them.
Bad draw. Bad draw. That's all I can say.
It's a bad draw. I think it's a great draw for the Warriors. I think the experience is significant. This is a real factor. It may not apply to the Thunder. It does apply to Houston, that this team hasn't accomplished anything yet. They will in the years ahead. They're going to lose in 6 to the Warriors, just like John Gonzalez said. And that's going to be a building block and an experience and a moment that they take with them, but they're going home early.
Both of us have Warriors in 6. Doesn't look good for the Warriors. Congratulations to the Rockets. Quick timeout, and then on the other side, we'll continue with our Western Conference playoff previews and predictions. You're watching Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John Gonzalez and our NBA insider, Bill Reiter here. Just a reminder, we're also a podcast. You can find us wherever you get your favorite shows. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. Bill, these Western Conference playoff series are so good. We're just talking about the Warriors and the Rockets. I'm so excited for that. 3-6 matchup is the Lakers and the Wolves. I am so excited for this one, too. They split the season series 2-2. The odds have the Lakers favored at -186, Wolves +156. This one, I mean, the star power on this, the matchups, the difference in style between the front courts and Edwards trying to take another step forward. I just cannot wait for this one as well. Basically all of the Western Conference minus, say, like Oklahoma City should be fantastic, but this one, too.
Even OKC Memphis, I'm interested in if that happens, just because if OKC blows them out of the water, that says something about the Thunder. Every time I think about this series, and I was looking at it today and doing some research, I keep hearing your voice because we spent too much time working together, so I hear your voice now. The Styles makes fight point that, no, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is such a juxtaposition of approaches. I mean, this is a really big, long, as you pointed out, athletic Timberwolves team, and the Lakers have decided to try life without an actual center, or at least a capable center. And so and you have this incredible star power in Luka and LeBron. And I think that sometimes we sleep a little bit on some of the other pieces and parts that are in Minnesota. I know they moved on from Cat, but it's a pretty complete team. This is the hardest Western Conference. They're all hard, John. I find this the hardest series to try and figure out.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one several times. So you were mentioning the front court size differential. So the Lakers have one center that they actually use, but only intermittently and frequently not that much, Jackson Hayes. So they've essentially decided that they're going to go with a lot of Dorian Finney-Smith at center, play small ball center, and then also LeBron periodically at center, which is a really interesting way to approach a series against the Wolves, who have a ton of size with Rudy Gobert, who was last year's Defensive Player of the Year, and Naz Reid and Julius Randle, and just Ant as a wing, is a giant wing, has famously called himself big as hell, and he is. So I just think how they go about this and those two different styles. JJ Redick has not been shy about changing up his rotations, changing up his tactics. So to see how he decides to, combat Rudy and Julius Randle and Naz Reid, that's my number one thing that I'm interested in. And then number two, who draws the Ant assignment?
Yeah, by the way, that's your guy. I mean, you've also been on JJ Redick, and I was JJ agnostic. You're right, as in definitionally uncertain, did not know, and he's been outstanding. I'm curious how you feel about Rudy Gobert, because you noted he's been Defensive Player of the Year. He's also he might be the most maligned, successful or star basketball player on earth, and he certainly is the most maligned player regular season to playoffs. And so this is a really interesting matchup for him. What's your confidence level that what Rudy does well, and I know some people would say, the punchline, he does nothing well in the playoffs. How does that translate against the Lakers for you? Because he's under pressure to play at a high level.
I don't know. He's always under pressure to play at a high level. I think he really is a remarkable Rorschach test. Like, everybody sees different things in Rudy Gobert. Last year, I was frequently put into the position on this show of being the Rudy Gobert defender, where, I think the hate has gone too far, Bill. I mean, he was the Defensive Player of the Year again. This year, he's not going to be, but he's going to make all defense again, probably second team. And it's like, I don't know, for what he is, the guy is pretty consistently good at his job. Now, yes, in the playoffs, that has gotten them not so far. And I'm sure that they'll put him in the pick and roll mixer and they'll try to drag him out from the playbook on Rudy Gobert is well established. They'll try to drag him out from away from the basket and put a quicker player on him so that they can scoop by him on the way to the basket. That's something to watch for sure. Something else to watch, Bill, and this is something that you've noted, is that the Lakers, since getting Luka, they're 20-13, but in terms of their offensive and defensive rating, they're just kind of middle of the pack. And they've just trying to been finding their way. And I think, Luka and LeBron, what you're going to get with them. They're going to be two of the three best players on the court in this series. But that supporting cast beyond, say, Austin Reeves really needs to step forward.
This Lakers offense, since Luka arrived, is a worse offense than the Rockets offense that we were just maligning. I mean, they are. I mean, the thing is, obviously in the playoffs, it's a little bit different. Deep rotations are often going to shorten up a little bit. Defenses are sometimes going to improve, and you're going to have these moments in good series. And I think all but the Thunder series will be really good series. You have to have guys who can go out and just make their own space, create their own space, make their own shot, get a bucket, crunched. I mean, they've got two guys that can do that, and LeBron and Luka, and they've got this guy in Austin Reeves, who you noted is pretty good too. And so it's an interesting. And by the way, and also I want to say, I also think a huge part of this is how many games in this series can Anthony Edwards be unequivocally the best player on the floor? It could be 0, it could be 5 or 6. And so I think Ant is a legit big time playoff player when it matters most. But we have a smaller sample size on that than we do LeBron, and obviously Luka just carried a Mavs team that discarded him to the finals. And so who can dominate this game? Who's just the best player, I think, is up in the air in a way that it usually isn't in these series.
I would suspect that JJ will throw everything in the kitchen sink at Ant Edwards. They're not big in the front court, but they do have good positional size. So look for them to blitz the hell out of him whenever he has the ball in his hand. And it's going to be difficult. I mean, Ant is just otherworldly. You're not going to be successful at it all the time, but they're going to try to frustrate him as much as possible. All right, pick time. As you said, this was a really difficult one for me. You go first on this one. Which way?
Let me add also Julius Randle is going to have to hit a bunch of shots, which he has lately if they do blitz and double Ant. And he is literally one of the worst shooters in the history of the NBA playoffs. And despite that, I'm taking the Timberwolves. And it's close.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I went back and forth. And by the way, every pick can be wrong outside of the Thunder. Every pick in the Western Conference is fraught with peril. It feels like we're picking the play-ins all over again. We're like, I don't know. This team.
How many?
I think I'll go 6, which is sort of the cop-out answer, because I once had a GM who was watching one of these said everybody who takes somebody in 7 is just saying they don't know the answer, which is dumb, but I can't get it out of my head. So I'll say Timberwolves in 6, but this is a 6 or 7 game series, and I don't feel good about the pick, but I feel slightly better saying Timberwolves win.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one. To your point about anybody who takes a team in 7 doesn't know which way they're going. I'll take the Lakers in 7 because I thought about the Wolves in 7. I think it's going to be a fantastic series. And, it would not surprise me at all if the Wolves ended up winning this series. But just by virtue of Luka and LeBron and their playoff experience and having 2 of the 3 best players, that was kind of my default position. All right, moving on to the 4-5 matchup, another fantastic series in the Western Conference. We've got the Nuggets and the Clippers. Your Clippers, Bill. I looked at this, and they are slightly favored. They're minus 118. The Nuggets are plus 100. They split the season series 2-2. Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised either way if it was the Nuggets being favored or the Clippers being favored. But the Nuggets, obviously, their offense is fantastic. 4th best offensive rating. Their defense leaves a lot to be desired. Frequently, they did not play defense, 21st in defense. It ended up leading to, in addition to a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes drama, Mike Malone, the head coach, and Calvin Booth, the general manager, getting fired. So David Adelman takes the controls for this one, Bill. What are you looking for in this series?
By the way, this might be the series that I'm most excited about. This is up there for me, Warriors-Rockets, because if Kawhi is out there and healthy and able to be the Kawhi Leonard we've seen off and on since he came back at the start of the year, you've got 2 of the most impactful players that I've covered in 20 years of doing this. So I am worried about Kawhi's durability because I always am, but it feels a safe bet, at least for a series, that can be relied upon. I'm worried about James Harden sort of returning back into a pumpkin. I mean, maybe that's a little overstated, but we've seen it a little bit over the course of the season. But really, this is a great Clippers team that everybody underrated, especially me. They're amazing defensively. They run as much ISO as anybody offensively in the NBA, but it works for Kawhi and James and Harden. So for me, it's everything the Clippers do well, John, against the best player on earth, a guy who can literally go 60, 20, 20 and lose a game. I mean, I know we haven't forgotten, but SGA's been so good and the Thunder have been so good. To remind people, Nikola Jokic is having a run over the last 4 or 5 years that's among the most impressive in the history of the game. And it doesn't matter what is wrong with your basketball team. When you have that guy, you have a chance.
Yeah, for me, it really kind of is one man against an entire team, because you saw there the numbers on the screen there for Kawhi Leonard, who's been back and healthy and useful, and James Harden, who you and I were super down on coming into this season. And when Kawhi Leonard missed a big chunk of the season to start the year, who was there buoying them offensively? It was James Harden. And then Ivica Zubac has had a remarkable season. I don't think a lot of casual NBA fans really understand how good Zubac has been. He's been super consistent, just the glue guy for them, and also probably could make all defense this year. So it's this whole unit that Ty Lue has tied together that they're going to be throwing at Nikola Jokic. There's more meat to pick on this bone here, Bill, between the Nuggets and the Clippers series. Let's take a quick break. And then on the other side, I want to discuss that juxtaposition between how the Clippers have all these pieces and how it's just basically Nikola Jokic out there, like one man trying to drag an entire team of bit players behind him up the mountaintop, and varying returns on that. So we'll discuss a little bit more Nuggets 4-5 Clippers series on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc, continuing our playoff previews and predictions, discussing the 4-5 series in the Western Conference, the Nuggets and the Clippers, Bill. So we were discussing and lauding the Clippers for being more than the sum of their parts. They've got all these useful players. The Nuggets, you ended up landing on when we talked through earlier this week, your awards ballot. You have an awards ballot. It was giving you a little bit of stress, but you landed on Nikola Jokic. I don't think that there's a wrong answer for MVP, but you landed on Nikola. And I think that that's probably right just because he's done so much this season. He averaged a triple-double, first center in history to do that, just the 3rd player ever, along with Russ and Oscar Robertson. But the pieces around him, Bill, have not exactly helped Nikola Jokic this season. Jamal Murray in and out of the lineup. He started off super slow, and then all of a sudden he found his groove. But beyond that, MPJ, you and I have said over and over again that we're waiting for this guy to take that next step. He really hasn't done it. Christian Brown's been really good, but it's hard to look at the Nuggets and go, that's your guy. The number 2 guy on the team is going to be Christian Brown, right? So these pieces that Nikola Jokic has around him, they're asking him to do so much. He needs some help.
I mean, he's so good and enhances people so truly that we've sat here on this podcast and praised 2025 Russell Westbrook. I mean, that's when you have to just sit back for a moment Yeah, and it's amazing because you and I discussed had MPJ taken that step forward or just been traded, there was a world where maybe there's just enough that you start to really believe in Denver. And MPJ did not do that. And there are very credible reports out of Denver that the ownership group who have a connection to him, to Mizzou, my alma mater, he's untouchable. And so here we are. I mean, it's the same story and the same dance from last year where Jokic didn't have enough help and he had to rely on an unreliable Jamal Murray and he had a bunch of pieces around him that don't really work. And the question is not, can they help him enough for this team to win? It's, can he carry a very imperfect team further than is probably reasonable to ask of most people?
Yeah, it really does come down to the greatness of one man versus the unity of one team in the Clippers, and also, of course, whether or not Kawhi Leonard is healthy. All right, pick time. I'll go first on this one. You had mentioned previously in an earlier segment that people who pick a team in 7, little confused about what might go down. I'm taking the Nuggets in 7 because I'm a little confused about what might go down here. Would not surprise me at all if the Clippers, who are favored just slightly in this series, end up winning. I think that they're the better overall team. But Joker is so unbelievable, Bill, that I just cannot go against him. So I'll take the Nuggets.
Okay, so I like doing picks, but I also know they're worth exactly what you pay for them, which is nothing, right? So sometimes I can get a little sarcastic with my picks. Here's the thing. I'm taking the Clippers. And I'm taking them in 5 because I'm just going to presume that I'm just going to double down. If they're going to win this series, I think the wheels come off really, really early for Denver, and they just give up the ghost. And I don't know that Nikola Jokic is built that way, but as we have talked about, total dysfunction in the organization, fired their GM and their head coach. And I keep coming back to this, that the reason that they were let go is there was, and all this reporting came out, a toxic environment in Denver that was created at every level of the organization because Calvin Booth and Michael Malone couldn't get along with each other. And I can remember, as well as the Clippers, a GM once telling me that the old Lob City Clippers were going to lose and blow a series they shouldn't have, because when teams have toxicity, doesn't matter what they do on the floor, it catches up to you in the playoffs when it feels different. It comes out and teams tend to collapse or underperform. And that was the very year that the Clippers gave up a 3-1 series lead to James Harden and the Rockets. And I've never forgotten that that's a real thing. This is a toxic organization right now. It's a toxic reality. And as good as Jokic is, I don't think it's going to go well. And so I'll go as much against the Nuggets because of everything that's happened as I will for the Clippers. And if I'm going to pick them, I figure I'll pick them in 5. So give me the Clippers, and I'm sure that means that the Kawhi will sprain his ankle, walk into the arena, and it'll be a different outcome because that's how it always goes. Why do I believe in Kawhi Leonard and James Harden? They get me every.
And the Clippers, you're believing in the Clippers as well. But it's a reasonable explanation, and I don't blame you for it. And I also like the fact that you and I are now split on several series in the Western Conference because previously you and I were on the same. We had all the same picks in the play-in games, and that did not go well. So we're kind of going against the BTA curse here, and I like that. All right, moving along quickly to the Eastern Conference. We don't have to spend a lot of time on Cavs against TBD, either the Heat or the Hawks. We'll see who comes out of the play-in here. But the Cavs have had a remarkable season. I'd be shocked, Bill, if they didn't throttle either the Heat or the Hawks and move on to the second round.
Yeah, Cavs in 4. Maybe it's 5 if they play Miami. I'm totally with you.
Perfect. I'm also Cavs in 4. We can move on from that because Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, all NBA. Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year case. You ended up going with Mobley with Defensive Player of the Year, right?
I did, and like it has my name on it, but that's a beyond the arc ballot right there. You swayed me on several things, and again, I told you your voice in my head. I heard it as I was filling it out 40 seconds after we got off the air. So yes, I did go Mobley for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he deserves. I feel good about that one. Yeah,
you should. I think he deserves it. There are a lot of worthy people who could win that award, but I think he's just been consistent all year, and a big reason why they're the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and as is Kenny Atkinson, who's likely to be the Coach of the Year. All right, so we're both going sweep for the Cavs. Let's go on to that 2-7 matchup, the Celtics and the Magic. The season series, the Magic actually won this one, Bill, but the odds are heavily, heavily in favor of the Champs. This is one of the ones I was alluding to where I looked at the odds and I thought, is that right? Celtics are minus 8,000 to win this series. Magic are plus 2,200, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Boston in 4. Everybody talks about how physical Orlando is and how great they are defensively. Cool. The Celtics are just as good or better defensively. And, oh, by the way, they're also elite on offense. I mean, give me a break. I know. By the way, this is one of the 14 teams that you claim is you love the Magic. So I want to hear you take them. I want to hear you give them a couple games.
All right, so I think that they might win a game. It's possible, but what I want to, before we even get to that, yes, the Magic are big, strong, physical, athletic, and part of the reason why in 2 games earlier this season that actually mattered, where the Magic play or where the Celtics actually played everybody, they were really frustrating the Celtics on their bread and butter, which is shooting threes. The Celtics take the most threes in the NBA. They make the most threes in the NBA. In those 2 games that the Celtics ended up playing all of their guys, Bill, they only shot in those 2 games 33 3-point attempts and then 37 3-point attempts. That was the lowest and 4th lowest of the season because the Magic are awesome at guarding the perimeter. They don't just want to like slow you down on the perimeter. They want to take it away from you completely. Do you have any concern about the Celtics, who are a prolific 3-point shooting team, facing a Magic team that is the best in the NBA at taking it away? I already know the answer.
0. Now, look, is there a concern that reality, it's a reality, combined with the fact there's going to be statistical anomalies that happen with the way that Mazzulla wants his team to play, means that they're going to have off nights, Boston, self-inflicted or maybe inflicted by Orlando, and this series goes longer than it should? Sure, that'll probably happen at some point over the course of the playoffs for Boston, but they're winning the series. And I think Orlando's a cute little team. They are. The Celtics are something else much more ferocious.
Yeah, even on nights like the Celtics might have 1 off night shooting, maybe 2 off night shooting, but just 1 through 6, they all shoot and they all defend, and then 1 through 8 all shoot. So it's going to be a tall order for the Magic. All right, prediction time. Which way are you going?
I'm going to go Boston in 4. The end.
All right, because the Magic are one of my 15 teams, I must give them 1 game, Bill. I will go gentleman's sweep. I'll take the Celtics in 5. I think there's going to be 1 game where the Magic frustrate them so much on the perimeter, and they just like dirty it up, muck it up. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and maybe like you get the Anthonys out there, Anthony Black and Cole Anthony score. Maybe like the game's 102-100 or something. I'll give the Orlando Magic 1 game out of the 7. It's not going to go well for them. The Celtics are going to be marching on, and we're going to be marching on. We're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we will continue with our Eastern Conference preview. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, we're also on YouTube. You can find us over there at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe. That little bell symbol, you click on that, you'll get notified when we go live. We're doing a ton of live content after post-game shows during the playoffs, so come and join us on YouTube. All right, Bill, over to the 3-6 matchup in the East. Of all the playoff series, non-Western Conference division, this is the one I'm most excited about. The Knicks against the Pistons. The Knicks, obviously, high hopes coming into this season, had designs on being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Technically by seed, they were, although they were kind of light years away from the Cavs and the Celtics, but they got the 3 seed here. The draw isn't great for them, I don't think, because all these other like non-Cavs, non-Celtics, non-Knicks teams, the Pistons have had a really fantastic season. And Bill, they won the season series 3-1 over the Knicks.
Yeah, they're physical, they're incredibly well coached, and I brought this up a lot. I think it matters. Their season's already a success. They can be swept by the New York Knicks, and they get to go home having turned around their franchise, and the future is bright. New York, whatever happens in this series, they're not going to beat Boston, but they need to win that series or compete in that series at a minimum, I think, to justify the moves that Leon Rose made and the way that he constructed the team and some of the things he gave up to put this team together. So, the Knicks have a really high ceiling. There's a lot to talk about in terms of how Thibodeau manages his guys and their minutes and their wear and tear. There's a lot of pressure on the New York Knicks, and there shouldn't be in a 3-6 series, but there is.
Oh, there totally is. I mean, look, their first 5 is unquestionably better than the Pistons, right? You've got Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, who are both going to make All-NBA. And then OG and McHale and Josh Hart are incredible defenders. They do all the little things. They play at both ends of the floor. That first 5 is great. However, the Pistons are this is the classic case of more than the sum of their parts. Since the deadline, they're 8th in offensive rating and 7th in defensive rating. And obviously that all traces back to Cade Cunningham, who made his first All-Star game. He's going to make his first All-NBA team. And what I'm really interested in here is in those couple of games earlier in the season where the Pistons ended up winning the season series 3-1, they were targeting Karl Anthony Towns in the pick and roll, Bill, where Cade Cunningham could not get him into that pick and roll mixer enough. And it was a real problem for Karl Anthony Towns. And then Also, you've got Asar Thompson, the twin of Amin Thompson, who Amin Thompson is going to make first team all defense. And some people like our colleague Sam Quinn had him as defensive player of the year. Well, Asar Thompson, if he had played more this season, Bill, he might have been in contention for all defense as well. And he's going to draw that Jalen Brunson assignment. This is not going to be easy sledding for the Knicks. They're going to have to really kick it into gear here.
So one thing I'll say about New York I think it's a hard series to call too. The underwhelming part of their team this year, which is counterintuitive based on who their coach is and just the guys you mentioned, has been their defense. Since Mitchell Robinson has come back, they're actually a top 4 defense. It's a really small sample size, but they've been much better on in that respect lately. And so you brought up a Rorschach test earlier with somebody else. I think the Knicks are like that too. I'm in New York where everybody's walking around here trying to talk about why the Knicks are going to win a championship this year. And there's a level of delusion right to my left here in the Big Apple. But they are a team. If you want to sell yourself on New York, at least in the series, you can. There are ways to do it.
I think the Knicks are the favorite. They are the favorite in the betting odds. But look, the Pistons, Bill, it's prediction time. I really wanted to take the Pistons in this series. I just can't do it because the Knicks have all that pressure on them. They are the better team, at least on paper. They're the higher seed. They're the betting favorite. But man, it would not surprise me at all if the Pistons win this. And spiritually, I want this because I have a buddy who's a Pistons fan. They've gone through some really tough things for a long time. I just don't think it's this year. I'll go Knicks one more time, another 7. Give me Knicks in 7.
I forget. Were you on the Pistons for the last couple of years? I can't. Was this one of the?
Not till this year.
Really?
I'm on them this year. Yeah.
I'm in the same place as you. I wanted to go Pistons, and I think it can happen. I mean, there are upsets that happen that you really can't see coming. This might be the one, right? We could both be wrong. I'm going to go Knicks in 6. I'm avoiding the 7s as much as I can. And I think because it is a young Pistons team, if the Knicks can get up and get to a game 6, maybe they can just end it on the road for New York. But I think it's a really interesting litmus test of whether what New York has done has any chance of success this year or the next few years. Because I love the Pistons. I love what they're building. You cannot lose to the Detroit Pistons if you are this Knicks team.
Yeah, Pistons playing with house money for sure. All right, moving on to the final matchup in the Eastern Conference, Bill. 4-5 matchup between the Pacers and the Bucks. The Bucks actually won this season series 3-1. The Pacers are the favorites, though, not heavily, -166, Bucks +140. The Pacers, Bill, you love the Pacers. They're just consistent. They're good at both ends of the floor, 9th in offensive rating, middle of the pack defensive rating, but they are, I think, better than people really understand with Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith at the defensive end and Pascal Siakam just missing the cut in terms of all NBA consideration. Halliburton being back looking like himself. Now, for the Bucks end, they've got Giannis, obviously, and Dame Lillard just recently cleared from a blood clot. Now, he's not on blood thinners anymore. He's going to be out for game 1. We don't know when he's going to return. He's expected to have a ramp-up period here, Bill. It's good news that he's going to be back, but I still think that the Pacers are the better team here.
Yeah, and let me add to what you just said, because you're right. They on paper, they're not great defensively, but they are better, John, as you noted, than people might note. They got off to the Pacers, let's go win the Wayback Machine. They got off to a really bad start at the start of the regular season, especially defensively. But they just figured some things out in mid-December and talking to some people in the organization. They just felt like their first 20 games about figuring out what they were is what they just needed to kind of shake off last year's, I don't know, can you have a conference finals hangover? They just felt like the team wasn't focused. Since mid-December, which is a pretty big sample size, they're actually a top 10 defense in the NBA. They're a top 10 defense since December 13th. They're a top 10 defense since January 1. They're a top 10 defense since the trade deadline. Not that those dates necessarily matter for the Pacers, but we've measured a lot of teams from the trade deadline on because Jimmy Butler went somewhere and Luka Doncic went somewhere, and we've sort of talked about how teams have turned it around over that stretch. Well, the Pacers are playing really good defense over that time. And I'll also add, I am not a big believer in Doc Rivers. I think he is overrated as a head coach. Even if Damian Lillard were out there, they have not. And he's had a full year now. It's not last year where Adrian Griffin got fired and he came in, Doc, in the middle of the year, and you had maybe reasonable excuses or not reasonable excuses. He didn't have time to work with that team. So the Pacers are the little engine that could under the radar, and the Bucks are the team with all the drama and a lot of attention that have been underwhelming.
Yeah, when we talk about the expectation game and the pressure game, in the same way that the Knicks have a ton of it and the Pacers or the Pistons don't have any, the Pacers don't have any, and the Bucks have a ton. The Pacers went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. If the Pacers end up as the 4 or 5 seed getting bounced out in the first round, people go, look, the Pacers are the Pacers. Expectations aren't that high. The Bucks, Bill, are facing their third straight first round exit. If you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, that is absolutely inexcusable. And if that happens again, because you have Dame and you have Giannis, look, Dame had a really good season. He was an all-star again. The blood clot issue is really unfortunate. I still don't think that Dame and Giannis next to each other is enough. But if they don't win this first round matchup and they get bounced again, this offseason is going to be a ton of chatter about what about John Horst? What's he going to do? How does he fix this team? And how long till Giannis wants out? That's going to be a problem for them. We're going to take another quick break, and then on the other side, we're going to get into, Bill, you're not going to believe this. There's still more play-in games that have to be discussed. The 8-seed play-ins finally wrap up tonight. We'll do that on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Just wrapping up our Pacers-Bucks 4-5 matchup preview here. Pick time, Bill. Which way are you going in that one?
I want to go Pacers in 7, which feels like a cop-out. I almost went Pacers in 6, but how many teams are we going to pick to win on the road in our predictions thing? I think they're markedly better, and I think that'll be clear, but it is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's easy to forget he is clearly and obviously the third best player on the face of the earth, and is having a season, by the way, that would make him the MVP more years than not over the last 20 years. So Giannis will win them some games. We don't know when Lillard's back or what that looks like. Regardless, I think the Pacers are the better basketball team.
Yeah, that's why I'm going Pacers in 6, because you've got Giannis and he's incredible, but his help is like Brook Lopez and Kyle Kuzma, and then like fingers crossed and hope for the best. And like you, I'm not a believer in Doc. I am a believer in Rick Carlisle. I think it's going to be a third straight first round exit, and they're going to have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. All right, 8-seed play-in games tonight, Bill. Starting the Eastern Conference, the Heat at the Hawks. The winner will be the first playoff team in an 82-game regular season with a losing record since the Celtics 10 years ago. If the Heat win it, they'll be the first 10 seed to advance. I think they're going to do it.
My kids like this candy called Airhead, John, and they have a flavor that's a mystery flavor, and I wish we could choose that because I have no idea anymore. I keep getting these play-ins wrong.
Yeah,
my pick is mystery. I'll go the Heat. I think they're a better team. I think they care more. I think they have more sort of belief in what they can do going forward. But it's one game.
Yeah. It's one game. I mean, the Heat have not been good since the deadline, 13-21, including that win over the Bulls. But they are big and they are strong and they are athletic and they have a good defense. And the Hawks, you saw how much they were frustrated by that against the Magic. So I just expect that muscle memory will kick in for the Heat and they'll get out of it and become the first 10 seed to do it. All right, over to the Western Conference. We got the Mavs and the Grizzlies. Bill, the Mavs in the last play-in game against the Kings started the weirdest lineup ever. It was no guards basically, except for Klay Thompson. It was Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Derek Lively, and then they had Klay Thompson as their nominal guard. And that's not necessarily his ballywick. I mean, he's a shoot-first guard. Like asking him to be the distributor and the playmaker and the dribbler was kind of curious, whereas the Grizz, Ja's expected to play. He's got his ankle injury, but I just think they're the much more complete team.
I mean, look, I think Memphis is actually a good team. I'm not sure they're great, but they're a good team. Don't let where they're playing right now fool you. They were really close to being the 5 seed this year. And the Mavs have one great player and a lot of dysfunction. So I'm with you. I think there's a huge gulf between these two basketball teams.
What do they do? What do the Mavericks do this? I mean, they have no guard play for this game, and they're about to go into an offseason, Bill, where it's just going to be nothing but noise about Nico Harrison.
Don't worry. Guard play doesn't win championships. Nico, it's defense. So don't even worry about it. Don't sweat the positions, John. It's all about defense, Nico told me. What
are they going to do if Luka gets to like a Western Conference Finals? Is he going to say that Dorian Finney-Smith wins championships? How's that going to go over?
Well, we'll ask him in his secret press conference when he has another one a year from now.
Yeah, we got to get invited to that secret press conference. All right, that's going to do it for us for now. But Bill and I are going to be back at it on Monday. We're also going to be on HQ all this weekend as the playoffs continue. But we'll be back at it on Monday, live on CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. Eastern to discuss all the playoff action from over the weekend. So come and join us for all of that. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great weekend.